Should be up momentarily.
There we go. I see that. Thank you. And I will bring up the PowerPoint. All right, move ahead to the agenda. Jim, can you get us started, please?
Yeah, call this meeting to order. And I'm Jim Mack, one of the members of the task force, and I'll let everybody else introduce themselves. Starting with Ron.
I am Ron Kumitz, Chief of the Alberg Fire Department.
And for Televate, we have Elizabeth Herring, Rick Burke, and Dominic Arcuri. And also we have Michelle Hunt on the line. She may be at her desk, so she can chat, but that might be it. Thanks for joining.
I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of agenda. Anybody have any changes to our agenda?
I do not.
Neither do I. And I guess we'll move on with approval of minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous session.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On objectives.
All right, I'll move on to that. Thank you, Jim. And just to clarify, this is the Tier 2 meeting, working group meeting of the task force to discuss the technology and shared systems-based regionalization. We have a number of different work areas we will be discussing. I'll get to those in just a second. An update on the schedule. We discussed at our last meeting, we were extending our schedule a couple of weeks to go to the end of August for this group so that we could hopefully be prepared to present our thoughts and recommendations to the task force that has a meeting that last week in August. I believe that's August 27th. Some of the rest of the schedule there, the items shown in yellow, we are proposing to move those out a couple of weeks as well to accommodate the other task force extending their time frame. I had hoped to talk about that at the task force meeting this week, but of course that did not occur. So I put them in yellow because they are proposed but not yet approved. But for now, we'll move on. And Tier 2, the goal of our working group is to determine priorities and potential recommendations related to the key areas that are listed below for technology and shared systems, and to provide that to the full task force, as I just discussed, hopefully in a couple of weeks. These are all the work items are shown here below that, and bulleted items are all green as we have talked about them and have at least come up with initial direction, with the exception of a few action items that we have. And I'll move on to action items. This is showing the second half of the list. The first half have all been closed, so I did not include those. But we do have these few action items to discuss. They're a little small, so hopefully this makes it a little easier to read. Number 7 there, first one on our list, still to be addressed, is looking into whether the data, the geo data sets that have been developed will be migrated when the E911 board moves to Rapid SOS. And I believe Rick has an update on this.
I do. Thank you, Dom. So I had a good conversation with Barb and Jared about this transition to Rapid SOS. It's going to happen. They're going to do a beta in St. Johnsbury in October. I think that's tentative date because that's when the Geocom license expires and Rapid SOS comes in. And there's going to be some transition. They want to do the beta there. So Rapid, the enhanced 911 board's version of Rapid SOS is going to provide anti-alley data for all calls. Right now, those who have Rapid SOS are only receiving cellular information, call locations for cellular. What the E911 board is doing is they're going to integrate so that landline, all calls will be information will be delivered over the Rapid SOS platform, and so that's pretty novel because those who have sessions out there are now going to be able to receive all call location through the upcoming platform. They have a number of licenses. They have sufficient licenses for all the PSAPs and for others. And they're still sorting that out of what they're going to do and how they're going to do that. So I'm not going to go into that level, but they're going to begin their outreach as soon as they've validated their beta. And with that, the answer to my question regarding will data sets be migrated to Rapid SOS, it has to do with the location, with the type of data and where it's currently residing. So if the data is stored in the Geocom database, likely yes, it's coming over. If it's in the 911 browser, their GIS browser, not likely. So, it could be potentially converted over, but they're not willing to make any commitments right now about what can and what won't be data. It's going to be, based on outreach to each center at some point. So, I don't have that may not answer the question. I know it was raised by Joe,
Allsworth.
Yeah, Joe
I think
Allsworth.
Joe
Yeah,
Allsworth,
I remember. Joe Allsworth raised this question, and so it's a good question. It's going to have the answer is going to be dependent on what the data is and where it currently resides, and it may reside outside of Rapid SOS, and it's potential that could be imported in, but nobody at the Answer 911 is willing to make any commitments at this stage of the game.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Rick on item 7? Okay, item 8 is an ongoing action to capture as much data as possible on existing LMR systems and upgrade plans, and to map them out and to identify areas that we feel are well covered and those where there might be some gaps. We anticipate this action item continuing for quite some time. We'll hopefully be able to present our recommendations to the task force, but this will still be ongoing as we'll be continuing to map that. It takes substantial amount of time to get the data. I do have quite a bit that was provided from Burlington Communications, which I appreciate, and have been going through that, and we'll be compiling all that data, and we'll continue to report on that as the task force moves along. Action item 9 was previously closed. It was regarding the power phone and the other discussions from item 3, which we also closed. Item number 10, we hope to close today. It was the question regarding the HR activities that were discussed in the non-call processing activities that were questioned as one of the work items. We did review the report from MCP. There wasn't anything specific identified in terms of HR, but we believe any potential activities for HR, those should be discussed when the governance group is put together, and also associated with the physical regionalization plan. Some of those HR activities will most likely have to remain local. Others could potentially be shared on a regional basis based on the regionalization plan.
Yeah, if I could add to what Dom just said. So, the concept of HR activities was what, came out of the MCP report. However, they didn't go into any detail. It wasn't a line item of, of staffing, of benefits, of salary, of job description, typical complete. There was no really description of what HR activities they meant. So, well, when we began discussing this, internally, we're like, well, what, you would have to, in order, HR is very complicated to regionalize unless it's on, governance is under an authority. So similar to like the Enhanced 911 Board, they have staff, and that staff is managed under their HR policy. So every dispatch center, PSAP, has its own unique HR policies. So you can't, it's going to be very difficult to come up with a common policy if the staff are not employed by a given entity, because unions, there are different union agreements and bargaining agreements, and there's plenty of things. And Michelle just made a comment that probably is very pertinent. Let's see what Michelle said. We experience holdups now by having to go through state HR. Okay, so there's pros and cons of what gets done, but you can't determine what activities may be regionalized until we have our regional and regionalization strategy and what our governance is. So while we think it's important that it needs to be addressed, we can't really address it here without having more insight into the future regionalization and governance structure.
Any questions regarding that item? Okay, moving on to item number 11. The action was to review the digital services cybersecurity policy. That was the state's Agency of Digital Services. We did download that and review that. Also, the link to the document is placed there in the response to this action item. And as soon as we move from discussion of the action items, the next couple of slides will show a little bit of a summary of that document. And then item number 12, the last item we have on our list, to follow up with some existing cybersecurity vendors. And I know we had started looking at this, but don't know if there was any further information to share. Rick or Jim?
I have a call out, but I haven't gotten my return call. So I called one of the entities, one out of top floor.
Okay.
I just haven't been able to talk to them. I called them yesterday. I was in anticipation of this meeting, but they haven't returned a call yet.
I tried to get my vendor in Shelburne to see if I could get him on the line today, but he had other engagements.
All right. Thanks, Jim. All right. So that'll remain open as we move forward. Okay, I did mention there's a couple of slides on the summary of the Agency of Digital Services, their policy for cybersecurity. And here is the essentially the summary of the purpose, which is to establish high-level requirements and responsibilities to make a foundational information security policy that addresses the systems within the purview of ADS, and also to be in compliance with all applicable state and federal laws, etc. The policy does align with the NIST special publication regarding cybersecurity, And they do note that other data information systems such as CGIS or HIPAA and some others may also have some requirements that are beyond this policy, so that the reader is cautioned that when dealing with that type of information, there may be additional requirements. The policy areas that they do address are listed here, a total of, I believe, about 20 items that are all listed within that policy. So that's an overview of that. And again, the link has been provided for those that want to pursue that in more detail. Any questions on that policy or this information? All right, next I would like to transition to the summary of the work items that this working group has addressed. And we've tried to summarize those in a form that hopefully could be presented to the task force, that we could go over our findings here as we report out to the task force. So I'll move through a number of slides in this format. So here we have taken, on the left side, you'll see the work item. Each of those, I think there's about a dozen or so work items that we've discussed as part of this working group. And these are work items that were addressed in the system plan document developed for the task force. There are the three options. Some cases there's two, or at least one there's four. But the options provided within the system plan report, they're repeated here. Those that are highlighted in green, as you might guess, are those that the working group expressed a preference for to recommendation for the task force to pursue that option. So for example, core data transfer related to CAD was the option 2 was to implement a CAD to CAD interface, but with the PSAPs continuing to transfer the caller to the dispatch center. Based on our previous discussion, that was the preference. There's a comments column all the way to the right, and happy to modify this or add to the comments as the working group members would like to make sure that this is clear as we present it to the task force. So in this particular case, just summarize saying that we need the CAD to CAD interface, but still want to be able to talk to the caller. Any additional thoughts or comments there?
No, that covers exactly what we were discussing.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Moving ahead to the next item, which was titled Essential Public Safety Discipline Functionality. That relates to CAD itself. So there are the three options that we discussed. And then the one everyone expressed a preference for was to develop an RFP for a statewide CAD system supporting all public safety disciplines. So we felt that was critical, and to essentially put together a group or a committee to develop requirements and then eventually issue a CAD RFP. I put there in parentheses include CAD to CAD functionality, so that would capture the item number 1 above as well. Any additional thoughts or comments?
No, that looks good to me.
The third item was statistics and reporting capabilities. Again, there were three options offered by MCP in their system plan report. Per the working group's discussion, we didn't express a preference for any of these in particular, but noted that a new CAD system with the meeting the requirements as the chosen committee defines would provide additional opportunity for reporting. And so that's what we have tried to capture here in the comments, to set reporting capabilities during the requirements phase for the CAD RFP. Any additional comments?
Nope.
All right.
No.
And
So I actually did some digging on the statewide data lake, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
found a very interesting website that has a lot of valuable data that the state maintains. Some of it doesn't maintain, and I failed to provide Dom the link for that, but there is a massive database, and because we were trying to understand where the concept MCP came up with a concept of the statewide data lake. Well, maybe the data lake is just a generic terminology for a reservoir. Because I mean, this would be more like Lake Champlain. It's huge. What's there? There is data for all. I mean, what the state maintains and as a public, view to is massive information. Boundaries and locations of I don't know, different kinds of wood, forest materials, and it's incredible how much data is there that the state provides. Now there is a one section for public safety, and that data, some of that data hasn't been updated for years. Some of it has been recently updated, but I don't know if the state is even, if the public safety community is aware of it, contributes to it. I know I have it up on my other computer. I'm looking for the website for it, but I'll find the website and put it in the chat. But it's a very interesting database, and
yeah,
I
thanks
don't
for,
know if there's valuable. Pardon?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, for sharing information, I mean, that our information is typically secure, so maybe that isn't a good depository. But there is a very impressive. I'm very impressed with the information that the state has aggregated into a GIS that's mappable, that's searchable, that it's just an incredible amount of information. So I don't know if that's what they refer to here, but that's what we looked for.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Rick. I remember we discussed that internally, and I want to ask Jim or Ron or Michelle, I know you're on the phone. Does the term statewide data lake mean anything to anyone? Or is this just a term that was utilized by MCP in their report?
Means
I've never-
absolutely nothing to me.
I've never
Okay.
heard of it referred to as a data lake specifically, but I do know that there's repositories of information. Michelle has a comment.
Sorry, there's construction going on in the background here. So we started discussing this in the Valcourt Governance Board meetings. This was, I think, some sort of a grant that the commissioner had to create this data lake. And so
Oh.
I'm not 100% sure where it's at now. They were going back and forth trying to decide whether or not they were going to try to have Crosswind develop something, or if we were going to use Slalom, which is who ADS has hired. But I'm going back through my minutes here in February, and I don't know that we've discussed it since then, so I'm not quite sure about where we're at today.
All right, thank you for that. Well, I would assume though that that can be considered when there is a group to put together requirements for the CAD RFP. That can be considered whether or not there needs to be an interface to that data repository, if you will. I think we're ready to move on. There's to the next group of work items. The next one is CAD to RMS data flow, which we did discuss as well. Again, there are three options here that were offered, and we discussed each of them. but the working group's approach was similar to the previous item in that we need to set the requirements for interface to the RMS during the CAD RFP phase. So for example, if Valcor is maintained as an RMS system, then and a different type of CAD is purchased, then there would have to be that CAD vendor would be responsible for developing an interface. Is that captured accurately?
Yes.
And next was the digital logging recorder standard, and we did discuss this. Of course, it was determined that there should be a statewide standard for logging recorder. There are two options here that approach in that manner. One being option 3, going the additional step to make it a state statute. So the working group's conclusion was that it needs to be either option 2 or 3 to have the statewide standard. And for right now, we'll leave it up to the task force to decide on whether or not that should be a state statute requirement.
Yes.
Core data transfer regarding telephone. Here there are two options that were presented, and the preference by the working group was option 1, to provide Aniela data integration, working with each CAD vendor that we use within the state to make sure that data is imported and is part of the documented call for service. And also this would be included in a CAD RFP. I did put a question mark in here, so that would be included in the CAD RFP would be somewhat of a long-term item. Is there an interim solution here? And I guess, Rick, I'll look to you based on what you found out about Rapid SOS. Is that an interim solution that could be incorporated prior to including it in a new statewide CAD?
Yeah, I think that it's an option. Certainly, that's.
So is it true that that's the intent of the 911 board when they migrate to Rapid SOS, is to have that data available to the dispatch centers?
That's a question I didn't ask, but I'll tell you why it may or may not be applicable. So
Okay.
certainly they're delivering this data to the PSAPs, and the PSAPs, I don't know if they'll have the ability to forward it along, but I don't see why not. But that would also mean that all the dispatch centers would have to have a license, for Rapid SOS.
Right.
That's from out of the same pool. And I don't know. There is a number of licenses that was purchased. There may be enough for all the dispatch centers, and there may not be. But I don't have that answer to that. And the Enhanced 911 board didn't share that with me. But I think that would be a good interim option, because that's what they claim that's their goal. Using Rapid SOS to deliver, anti-alley data for all calls, not just those that have Rapid SOS licenses today are only receiving enhanced location data for cell, wireless calls. And so, I think that could be, we should, investigate it further. I'll take an action item to follow up with that. But I think that would be a good interim solution, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Jim, Ron, is that something we want to recommend to pursue as an interim solution?
Yeah, I'd like to know if that would work for all the other dispatch agencies.
All right. Okay.
But Tom, I also want to let everybody know that I have that I'm putting a link to the Vermont Open Geodata portal.
Okay.
There's going to be two links. The first one is a link to the overall portal, which has categories of data. And then the second one is for health and public safety. And so that one goes directly to one of the pages from the main page. So there's a lot of very interesting data in there. So the state is doing, is collecting a lot of data of interest, but I don't know what, as Michelle said, what the conversation was regarding, regarding the data lake. And Michelle just put the minutes in the meeting, so I'll take a look at those. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, that kind of gives you the background, I guess, of how we got to that.
I think it's important. One of the things that we want to be sure as part of, kind of a foundation is that whatever initiatives we collectively as a state, as a group agree on, and we implement that, we ride them to final conclusion and implementation. What the experience from VCOM is a sad one because there was good intentions that never got materialized, and maybe it's the wrong direction to go in too. But we do not want to repeat those kinds of mistakes. So if and that's where governance comes in, where you have we went through that through a presentation with the governance group yesterday, where once you create it, you got to administer it, or it'll be a waste of time, of human and financial capital.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments on this item or any of these items?
Nope.
All right. We're ready to move on. The next three. Next one was fire station alerting and paging core data transfer. The two options were presented here. Number one was the one the working group expressed a preference for, to implement a interface to CAD for fire station alerting and CAD to CAD interface with the PSATs, but also to continuing to transfer the caller to the dispatch center. The second item was regarding GIS mapping, and there were a couple of actions or a couple of options here, and the working group saw those as a phased solution, if you will. So option one, to expand the use of Rapid SOS and integrate into the existing Valcor system. That would be a short-term solution, and then transitioning to option two would be CAD with a statewide CAD with more robust mapping capabilities.
Yes.
And I think this kind of ties back to that previous one where we said potentially expanding the use of Rapid SOS or Annie-Alley in the short term. Next item was over-the-top integrated applications. Again, two options were offered. The working group's preference was to develop a statewide work group for regional representatives to determine appropriate systems to standardize. But we also added the addition to it, or to augment that, augment option one with a statewide contract vehicle. So essentially option one plus, augmented some.
Yep.
All right. Any further comments on any of these, or are we ready to move on?
Well,
I think we're ready to move on.
Thank you.
Hold on a
Rick?
second. Yeah, hold on a second. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you got?
Oh, never mind. Okay. I was looking Yeah, keep going. We're good.
All right, thank you. Okay, we talked previously with the action items. We discussed non-call processing and ancillary duty transitions. There were two options presented here. We discussed these. We identified some that could potentially be addressed at a regional basis. But we also noted that this is being addressed in the Tier 3 working group, so they would have the ultimate decision as to how to move forward with that. We did identify the potential regional areas of the administrative, municipal services, alarm activation records, and warrants. Cybersecurity. We discussed cybersecurity as well. There's three options here. At the working group discussed at minimum, we need to have a definition for a statewide governance, risk, and compliance framework. That's what the GRC stands for. And also noted that we need further direction, if you will, from the state. So this, we feel, needs to be a top-down approach for cybersecurity. And VCOM is the additional one on this page. While there weren't specifically options provided, MCP provided a number of recommendations to modify VCOM and essentially bring it up to date and to modify its operation to, in their feeling, make it more useful to meet its intended purpose. But the working group's feeling was that it was not worth providing any further investment into VCOM. So the recommendation would be to terminate that network and salvage whatever equipment was possible.
Yes.
Any additional comments? I only have one more left, and it's the big one. So last item, well, at least we put it last year because we thought there might be more discussion. The LMR infrastructure improvement. Certainly, of course, this is one of the larger items that the task force would have to tackle, certainly in terms of potential cost for improvements. These are the four options that were offered by MCP. Of those, the working group discussed option 2 as being the most attractive option, although it was discussed that maybe should be considered from, instead of from a county standpoint, be considered from a catchment area for the various dispatch centers. So the various dispatch centers would need to have access to sufficient reliable LMR infrastructure to cover their catchment areas for whatever towns they support. And also we need to continue to work on developing a concept for this improvement, which takes into account current systems and expansion plans. And that's what we have ongoing right now, identifying those. Certainly just from Burlington Communications, they identified probably 8 or 10 simulcast systems either being planned or in use today, which could certainly form a part of this solution. And this is one that we can further enhance once we get some more information in terms of those systems, and maybe put some additional or put some costs together as to what might be included here. Any further discussion we want to have in this item right now?
You have anything to add, Ron?
I think for the most part, the option 2 option in practical use, as this situation stands today, really is not necessarily a countywide system, but I think that the way it really sort of works is that the mutual aid groups, for the most part, kind of share dispatch facilities with some small number of exceptions. And whether or not an individual agency wants to take advantage of whatever product we generate under that sort of, system of systems architecture is really kind of up to them. If they want to do their own thing, then they're sort of I hate to put it this way because it's kind of like the way my daughter puts it, but that's a them problem, not an us problem. So I think that we really, I think it's a pretty solid way to structure the whole thing. I don't think that by saying that we want to do it that way, we're going to back ourselves into any corners.
Thanks for that, Ron. I just thought, as you mentioned, that maybe modify the comments instead of saying option 2. Should we just say system of systems, which could potentially encompass option 1 or option 2, depending on which may be beneficial for and it may be different for law enforcement versus fire EMS. So
yeah, that's why I would just change from each county or VSP zone to catchment area.
Right.
Okay. All right. So under our comments, remove option 2. We'll talk about system of systems approach.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Or it could it could go a little bit further than that and just say that that the system of systems will be constructed based on considerations of existing mutual aid groups, dispatch facilities, and other factors that would make the resource sharing, the LMR resource sharing, more natural, or as natural as possible, so that when nobody gets all like freaked out when they see it.
Right. I think it's very important, Ron, that we, this has to be stakeholder driven. So while we can't design regional system of systems without the cooperation and collaboration of existing system owners, and that's not just their assets, their physical assets. That would be their frequency assets. And we're working on in the background. We're working on a design anchoring on option 4 being supplemented by existing assets. Now it's just a framework, but what our experience in this area is that with the owners of existing systems are always anxious to join a better system, as long as they can afford it. And so whatever we do, it can't be a burden on what's already existing, because most of these networks that we know of are kind of tapped out financially, and there's limited grants. I mean, that would take Central Vermont, for example, where Central Fire, they've got 20 plus towns, and their radio network is as bad as they get, in my opinion, and we know that network well. And there are other networks that are good enough for what they need, but they could always be better. So any consolidation to support a catchment area has got to have the support of the radio leads in each of those environments to work collaboratively. And it's going to need some injection of capital in order to achieve a desired simulcast zone catchment area network. And so, I mean, that's that undertaking. So this is more physical capital investments, but that essential outreach, stakeholder engagement, collaboration is something that would have to happen under a governance model, a structure that includes, financial as well as technical assistance.
Well, I think I guess perhaps I didn't really make clear where I was going with that. I guess what I wanted to make clear when stakeholders read this report was essentially that we are not going to like force them to go to a different dispatch center or what to use like system or separate them from their mutual aid partners. Our intention is to make every effort to allow them to do things in a way that they're comfortable with, and what they currently do, unless all bets are off and we have to do otherwise. If somebody is a total communications island in the middle of nowhere, and the only way to practically serve them is to put them to suggest that they go to a different system, to work better, then that may have to happen.
Sure.
But I think we should just make it pretty clear that our intention is not to change the way they operate or to force them to change the way they operate.
I 100% agree with that
Absolutely.
statement.
I'm trying to
Our goal
capture
is to enhance their capabilities, not to, not to change what they do.
I'm trying to do some live editing here to hopefully capture what we're discussing. I want to make sure probably the best way to do it is right now, so we can all look at it. Let's see. So there's a preference for a system of systems approach while considering existing mutual aid. What do we call them? We call them mutual aid groups, or what do you call them, Ron?
Yeah, mutual aid groups is pretty,
Okay. Mutual aid groups, catchment areas, and want to incorporate something about, stakeholder needs in there as well.
I think you could just put in a sort of one of those catch-all kind of phrases like, to preserve to meet the operational requirements of the stakeholders or something.
Okay.
Just so I hate to say it, but you kind of have to go above and beyond to point out that you're not trying to make them do anything. Otherwise, they assume otherwise. And even no matter how hard we try, there will be a few that will conclude that anyway. But what are you going to do?
Try to convince them that this is their idea.
Right. You can have the Happy Meal or the chicken nuggets, one or the other.
Well, you can't have either if we don't bring some capital to the table, for sure. So, and we're going to need a kind of a, and we're going to need, it's part of our presentation, what kind of investment we're going to talk about. And maybe that's to be determined because we need a little bit more background. So as I mentioned to you, we are modeling in the background options to get to these, but it'll take some more time to come up with a plan that is potentially achievable. And of course, underlying that is frequency licensing challenges. And so, we can make assumptions that it has previously been licensed, so it should be relicensable at other tower sites within a given geographic area. However, we can't really guarantee what, the delay from getting Canadian approval, or, what parameters we'll have to, what gates we'll have to jump through. But I mean, as we determined, there's a lot of facilities out there, and there's a lot of frequencies. When we looked at the individual, the number of sites, tower sites, or antenna support structures that are out, and that are owned and operated by state and local entities is massive, as are there hundreds of frequencies. So, from my, without having the details, that seems to me like a workable concept to build into regional catchment area networks, because we should be able to license it.
Mhm. Now, the way we have it worded right now, how does that sound? Any further adjustments we want to make to that? I think what Rick said, certainly, one of the major items we want to be prepared to discuss at the task force level is potential costs of each of these recommendations. This is the last slide on the various work areas that we've addressed. So in terms of um, next steps, we still have a few remaining action items, and I would estimate that going through the recommendations we have for each of these work items, there should be some accompanying information as to how that could be accomplished. For example, whether or not that will be handled by the governance committee, for example. We're assuming a governance structure is going to be established, and there could potentially be committees to address specific technology areas. So we would assume that some of these can be addressed through that structure. But it would also be important, I think, for us to put together cost estimates for the preferred approach. Some of that information is captured in the system plan report. So I would say an action item for Televate right now is to go through these recommendations for each of the work items, to review that in the system plan report, and to estimate required budget to move to each of those.
I like that.
Okay, thank you. What additional information do we need moving forward? I guess what else do we need to prepare when we want to present to the full task force? So we'll have these slides here that recommend the particular approach, and with our clarifying comments, and we can put together what we feel would be ballpark estimates of cost for each of these. The LMR one is going to be challenging. I'll tell you that right now. We can probably put together some ballpark estimate, but it will be challenging. Rick,
Yeah,
what else do you see? Oh, sorry, was that Jim?
no, I was just going to say, just a ballpark price would be good enough to start with for this
Yeah.
at this point in the process.
Yeah.
So we certainly want to be a little bit more accurate, a lot more accurate than the estimates provided in the report. Those estimates were outrageous, to be, just to be blunt about it. So,
I realize the land mobile radio, that one's going to be, could be a huge number. It could be a much smaller number depending on how you build it out.
yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
how much of the
And that's
existing assets are reusable?
right. And
So,
that's the key. That's what we want to take into account, which I don't think has been done to date, is to take into account the existing systems in place and assets that can be used.
but that
Well,
could be a next, a follow-up action, that we could spend some time and effort to get a better understanding of whether or not it's that the stakeholders will buy into it, and what it costs. I mean, are there, if they get a better network and it doesn't cost them anything, or cost them minimal, yeah, I think they'd go for it. But they're you're not going to, if it already works for them, why they would be interested in joining something that they might not have control over. So anyway, cut you off, Ron. Sorry about that.
No, what I was saying was that, I think it's going to be hard to predict the cost of some of that implementation because, even in places where there is common frequency usage using, multiple sets of infrastructure, nobody's ever done the propagation modeling to determine, how many of those existing sites, or if there's enough existing sites to turn that into that particular region's simulcast voting system. So at some point, there may need to be some funding appropriated to be able to do that, to actually determine what it's really going to cost to build out the actual system.
Yep. What you just said is exactly what I meant.
Absolutely agree. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely agree.
And as I said, we are working on some of that in the background. So we, I think what we learned from what MC.
I think Rick locked up.
Well,
But
go ahead, Rick.
Go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to say that, in terms of getting buy-in from some of the people who might be hesitant based on having to cede some of their control, I think they also need to understand that with ceding some of the control, also comes the ability to share the costs of, maintenance and repairs. At the moment, any one of those agencies that has a repeater that's sitting somewhere, and it gets whacked by lightning, they're going to have to eat the cost of repairing it all by themselves. But
Exactly.
if there are, 15 different agencies sharing that repeater as part of their simulcast voting system, then that cost is, divided by 15, and that could be a big difference.
I agreed. That's all part of the outreach, and that's all part of putting a design together, as you said, that would provide us better insight into what the potential investment would be. Right now, we don't have a ROM. We have a very aggressive proposal that MCP put together. So Dom and I spent a tremendous amount of time. We had dozens of meetings with those folks along the way on the land mobile radio, so they were engaging us, and it was good collaboration. In the end, I don't think they took all of our. They did add another option at the end, which became more similar to what we had discussed, but that wasn't priced out. But the two that they did price out were were hundreds of millions of dollars, or even $1 billion. So we didn't agree with those prices, but that's I don't think it's going to take that to get to where you are, as long as we can get collaboration and sharing. That's not going to happen without a very productive governance approach. You know, that there is a working group focused on that in particular.
Oh, based on where we are, I would say that we probably do need a follow-up meeting before the task force meeting on 8/27. We can certainly go over the recommendations that we run over today to see if there's additional updates, and we can, in the interim, Televate will try and put some cost estimates together for at least the majority of those, so we can review those. Is that consistent with what everyone's thinking?
Yep. So do we want to schedule a meeting for the 22nd?
That would certainly work on my end. Ron?
Hold on. I'm checking my calendar. At least
All
I'm
right.
trying to check my calendar. 22nd looks like it works for me.
All right. At the same time? The 12,
Yes, same time.
12:30
Yeah, that's
to-
fine.
All right, great. All right, Elizabeth, no doodle poll needed, so.
Okay, do we need to try to track down Michael Wright to see if
Yeah.
that time will work for him, or should we move forward
Send him a doodle poll.
Yeah.
with just that
With
one
only
time?
With only one option.
With one option. Yeah, we absolutely right. We should confirm with him if that's going to work before we go ahead and put that on the books. But let's say that's a tentative meeting time.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. So I guess that brings us back to the agenda, and we've tentatively scheduled the next meeting.
And moves us on to public comments. And does Michelle want to add anything to our discussions that she hasn't already said?
I'm good, thanks.
All right.
All right, it moves on to adjournment.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Great.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you
guys. Have a
all.
good,
All right.
great,
Have a good weekend,
Appreciate it.
everybody.
everybody have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.
Yes, sir. All right. Bye.